Hi, I'm back again. So, in case you didn't watch my other 3 videos, that's all I have so far. Relatively new, and I don't post as frequently as I thought I would. But my name is Rose, and my channel is called Journey to Joy because I feel like that's what my life has been, and I'm still on that journey probably till I die. But I am definitely way better than I was years ago, but it's been a long process. So that's what I'm here to talk about, and I felt like I had something God wanted me to say again this time. I haven't for a while. I haven't been feeling too good, and I think there's multiple reasons for that. One, my diet. I kind of started eating things I wasn't supposed to, and I think it was a gradual effect. I mean, I really only noticed like the thoughts creeping in like the last couple weeks or so, but it's probably been months since I've been like kind of not doing. I've been mostly doing carnivore and cutting out the carbs, but I have been like sneaking in stuff here and there that I don't normally eat, and I think that affects my mood big time. I think there's a lot of, I'm not going to get into the debate about it, but today's food, I believe, has a lot of stuff in it that's not good for us, and it builds up toxins in our body, hormones and additives, preservatives, all that stuff, and we just don't realize, like if you drink or eat a lot of dairy, a lot of the cows are being treated with antibiotics, growth hormones, things like that, and all of that, even though they pasteurize the milk or whatever they do to clean it before you buy it, I mean, that's probably coming through, like, to you. So when you're drinking milk, you're having growth hormones and who knows what else. I remember years ago, my neighbor, he's since passed away, but I think he stopped by to visit my husband to talk, and he was always very outspoken and kind of didn't really care for him too much, but it is what it is. But anyway, I was drinking some milk, and he was like, if you knew what they put in that, you would not be drinking that. I remember thinking, you know what, it goes good with my cookies, I don't care. But I gave up milk last August because it is high in sugar, I guess. But I still do dairy. I eat a lot of cheese, which is like 1 gram of carb per less per serving. And then I do heavy cream instead of half and half, but either one I guess is okay, and it's better than milk. There's like 1 gram of carb per serving. I did start drinking coffee again. I don't know if that's affecting my mood too, because I had given up coffee last August. And I had since heard that it can cause inflammation, and a lot of the coffee that's being produced has like toxins in it, mold growing on it. So unless you're buying like the premium organic type stuff, your body's probably getting a lot of toxins. But I started drinking like sugar-free lattes, and making them with half and half or heavy cream, so it's low carb, and they're delicious. So I kind of got hooked on those, and then I went and bought a latte maker. So I'm kind of drinking a lot of those lately, so that could be affecting how I feel too. I was doing good for a couple days, and by the second day I started feeling a lot better. So I really figured it was probably my diet, affecting my mood and how I was thinking again, and it started sinking. I've kind of been like that my whole life, where I'll be doing good for a while, like I have a great day, like my brain's like firing in all cylinders or whatever you call it. I love days like that. I wish every day could be like that. And then bam, it's like you hit a wall, and like I would feel like crap, and I couldn't stop thinking negative, and I was like, what is going on? I've been doing so good, and so yeah, so I've been doing good the last 2 days, but it took the second day before I really started noticing like I'm getting my energy back and a better mood and all that. I do still take Zoloft, so that does help. I definitely noticed a big difference when I started taking that. It's been several years now. I think I started taking it in 2020 or 2021, maybe early 2021. So that medicine definitely helps. I've been to therapy, all that. So maybe it's brain chemistry. I really don't know why I'm like I am, but I'm trying to manage it, and definitely, seeking help from God has made all the difference. I should have from the start, but I just didn't know. We don't know what we don't know, you know? And like Maya Angelou said, quote, when we know better, we do better. You know, if you don't know any better, you're doing whatever, you know, and without God's help, you're just kind of winging it. You're doing whatever you think you got to do, not knowing that if you turn to God and ask for help and let Him guide your ways, life would be a lot easier and more joyful. And that's what I've discovered for myself, is that once I let go, trust God, trust the process, let Him take control, and believe anything's possible, because I've seen it, you know. Because sometimes there's been things in my life that I have changed that took a long time about myself, you know, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't even believe it was going to happen, but I was just like, God, I don't know what to do or how to do it, but I know you can. I don't know how you would do it, and He has. He's shown up and done it in like unexpected ways, you know, different things that have changed about me. So I'm still a work in progress, and so that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. I did write down some of my thoughts, so you know, I don't seem so scatterbrained on here, because I am doing this channel. And if anybody I know watches it and they want to make fun of me, that's fine. I don't really care. That's one thing great about getting older and believing in God and being happy. I don't really care what anybody says or thinks about me. And I figure if they're talking about me, maybe somebody else is getting a break. Because if they're that type of person, they're probably talking about other people all the time. So anyway, so I wrote down some things. Obviously, I already discussed how diet plays a role big time in your feelings and your moods and how you think and all that. And then I also wrote that God takes one lesson at a time, and it can take a while. And He doesn't move on until He feels like you've gotten this lesson under control. So it's however long it's going to take for you, you know, until you trust. I can't tell you how many times like I was tested as far as giving. Like that was a big thing when I first started, was like, I mean, controlling my thoughts and all was like down the line. That was just like kind of recent compared to like the money thing was like, and it says in the Bible, don't test God, but in this one way you can test Him, because, and like Joyce Meyer said, you cannot outgive God, and it's true. And for me, it's just the proof in what happened in my life. And I used to be one of, well, I think it was out of fear. It wasn't that I was selfish or greedy. It was just that I didn't have my faith. I didn't understand that at that point. I'm not sure if I agree totally with like the 10% tithe rule and all that. I believe in giving what you feel led to give, and give what you can, and, you know, maybe give more, and don't be afraid of not having enough. You got to trust. I had to trust God was going to provide whatever I needed. So, oops, somebody's trying to call me. I think I'm going to hang up. Okay. All right, anyway, I hung up on that call because it was going to interrupt my recording. But anyway, when I first started out, like I said, you know, I had lived my whole life being afraid of not having enough, so I didn't want to give away what little I felt I had, you know. It was like, oh, you need to borrow $1. No, what if I need it? You know? So I was kind of like, I had to keep trusting God. Like, if I felt like compelled to give something to somebody, like if I saw a homeless person, I had to trust that I'm going to give this away. Everything's going to be fine. And, or even like with bills to pay, like if I didn't think I had enough, you know, I just had to trust. And honestly, the money would just like appear, like, and sometimes it's not money, like it's food, you know, like somebody will show up, I had this extra, you know, amount of whatever, and then they give you some food for free, you know. It's like, yeah, so I went from being a child not having enough food to like I got more food than I know what to do with at this point, and so I'm very grateful for that. But anyway, God will keep you on this lesson until you finally trust. So when you finally get to the point where you see a homeless person and you pull up and it's like, yeah, I got a 20, here you go, you know, and you're not worried about it. You're not worried about what he's going to do with it. You know, somebody asks you for help or needs to borrow something, you know, you're not worried about, you know, how you're going to be taken care of. Yeah. So anyway, that was my point there. Let's see. So he focuses on one lesson at a time. also it's like, okay, so you could be going along great and then bam, you start sinking again. And that's been me my whole life. And you wonder what's going on, and then you realize you've been here before. As Joyce Meyer says, new level, new devil. And it's true from my experience, because I'll be going along great, and maybe the diet played a factor in it this time. I don't know, but it's been like this my whole life. Like, I'll be doing great, having great days, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's like I cannot stop feeling like crap that day, and I can't stop thinking negative, and sometimes it'll lead into day after day being like that. And it's like I finally learned, like, pray about it and find out what's going on. And so, like, I started eating better again, and it was like then God started teaching me the next lesson. So now I feel like I'm on the next lesson. And what was that lesson? You have to keep trusting that God is going to help you, whatever your issues are. Whatever you think is impossible is not impossible with God. Anything is possible. You just don't know how it's going to come about. Okay, if you ask for the man of your dreams, it might not come the way you picture him. Okay. And anyway. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I believe it's about faith, not giving up, and trusting God. When I first started out, I had no idea, and it took years to realize I had to trust God, give up control, and truly anything is possible. I just didn't know what I didn't know. So those were my notes. So anyway, so if you're struggling and you've been like that too all your life, up and down, doing great, and then all of a sudden, bam, you sink, and just hang in there. Turn to God, like I've said before. God is the first place you should turn to, not other people. And that's what I did for many years, and I was miserable. I was trying to figure it all out on my own, and I was turning to other people who were probably, clueless just like me. And I just believe that, there is a lot. If you don't have God guiding you, you're going to go about things the wrong way. Like, even like reading the Bible, you're trying to learn about God, but if you don't like pray first and understand, you're not going to get anything out of it. I remember when I first started reading the Bible, I was like, what does that mean? And you got to realize that the people that wrote that Bible, that was years and years and years ago, and they spoke a different way. It was actually in a different language. It's been translated since then to probably every language that exists now. But the way they spoke was like thee, thou, thy, it's like, what? And you wonder why people like give up. And I was like, we don't understand what that means. So it's kind of got to be translated and put out there in a way that people of today can understand and relate to it, because there are valuable lessons in that Bible. And yes, there have been, I believe, people through history who have manipulated, used the Bible for their own benefit, to justify things that they shouldn't be doing, especially through the Old Testament. It's like, yeah. But when I read about Jesus, and I'm just amazed, like, honestly, I think Jesus was the first minimalist. And he taught us how we should live. He knew that there was so much unhappiness, so much corruption going on in the world. There still is. But he came to show us the way, like he says, the way, the truth, the light, follow me. But if you think about him and how he lived his life, what did he do? He had the clothes on his back, and he walked wherever he had to go, and he trusted that God would provide what he needed through other people. So people took him in, gave him a place to rest, gave him food, and what did he do? He just preached. He talked to people. He gave them hope, and he provided miracles. And so you see that, like, in the person who was behind and touched his cloth, he just wanted to get hurry up through the crowd, and if I could just touch his robe, I know my loved one will be healed, or I'll be healed, or I can't remember what the story was. I'm not going to worry about being, perfect, quoting the Bible, but anyways, and Jesus felt that coming out of his body, like, the power. It's like, who was that? Who touched my hem of my garment, And then when he saw who it was, he said, you are healed because of your faith, So, like, you don't even have to, like, see Jesus, be with him. You know, you just got to believe in him, and then whatever you're believing for, he's going to heal. He's going, and I have to believe it because it happened with my husband. And you know, people have opinions and they can believe what they want, but I believe that God healed my husband. In 2020, he had open heart surgery. I didn't realize at the time because he didn't tell me, but he was in the hospital for like 2 weeks before they even did the surgery, and I didn't know. It's because he had a lot of fluid around his lungs, so they wanted to make sure it was safe before they did the surgery. But apparently they didn't remove enough fluid, so his lungs failed during the surgery, and he actually died on the table. They brought him back, but he was like in a induced coma. And so then the doctor's telling me there was one other thing they could try. They could transport him to Rochester, who was specialized in this procedure, and I can't really remember the name of it right now, but they put tubes all over, and basically they clean his blood and keep processing his blood in and out, and it was, he had tubes like put in everywhere in his body. It was horrible. But anyway, before they were transporting him from Cooperstown Hospital to Rochester Hospital, which was like 3 hours away, they originally said they were going to do it by helicopter because there's no way he probably wouldn't survive a ride in the ambulance. It'd be bumpy, and you know, so, but then they ended up taking him in the ambulance anyway, and thank God he survived that. I don't know why they changed their minds, but anyway, I went in to see him to say goodbye, you know, and then I loved him and all that before they were taking him in the ambulance to Rochester. And I was in there crying. I'm praying for all I'm worth, and I'm crying, and I'm praying, and I heard God say, you know, because I was praying to Jesus, I'm like, please, Jesus, heal. And God said, put your hand on his heart and pray in the name of Jesus to heal him, and say it out loud, he said. And so I did. And like after that, like I just knew, like I felt better, you know. And then they came and they took him to the hospital, and they kept, you know, doing the procedure at Rochester, and he finally came out of it. And the doctors couldn't believe it. Even his regular doctor, he said that he watched the surgery, I guess, live online or something. I don't know how that works, but anyway, he's like, he could not believe that he survived all of that, because most people don't. And you know, he's 74 now, so you're talking 5 years ago, so he's what, 69. So yeah, so it's a miracle, and I believe God healed him, because there was other people. When he went to rehab in our town, he went to a hospital in our town. They took awesome care of him. There was a nurse that worked there, and she said her father was only in his like early 60s, maybe late 50s, and he had the same surgery done. He blamed it on the doctor, who was the same doctor my husband had, and but he didn't make it. Her father didn't make it. And I thought, wow, you know. And this was also the time of COVID. My ex-husband, my son's father, he passed away in February. My husband had his surgery in July, I believe, June or July. But anyway, my ex-husband, and at the time he passed away, they just thought it was a bad case of the flu. But then it was like not long after that the COVID came out, and so many people were getting sick and dying and everything. And my ex, when he was close to passing away, he had a lot of the signs and symptoms. My adult son was in the hospital with him, and he would relay the information to me. And I was actually on an Amish trip when my son called me to tell me that he had passed away. And it was just like a few days. Like he'd only been like, I guess he kept letting it go. He couldn't breathe good, but he just thought he was going to get better, and he didn't. So it finally got so bad, he finally went to the hospital, but by then it was so far gone. He got to the point, like my son was telling me, they were putting tubes, they were trying to draw blood, and he had blood clots like in his chest and his arms, everywhere, and they just couldn't even draw blood. And he was having multiple small strokes, and they couldn't figure out what was causing it. Well, later on, they come to find out that was what was happening to the COVID patients. So anyway, he got to the point where he had all these strokes, and so my son had to make the choice, you know, to pull the plug, and he did, based on what his father had told him a few years prior. He said, I know it's not something easy to talk about, but I feel like I gotta tell you, if anything ever happens to me, you know, a stroke or something like that, he says, I don't want to be kept alive artificially. And it's true, like, he was always very busy. He would have never wanted to live that way. He would have had to be taken care of the rest of his life if he even survived it. So anyway, it was several hours, I guess, from the time they pulled the plug on him. My son was with him, I guess. I was in Pennsylvania. And I just couldn't believe how fast he passed away, and he was only in his 50s at the time. Well, so I think he was 4 years older than me, and I'm 58 now, so that was 2020. So I was 52, so he was like 56. So he was 56 years old, you know, and it's sad. It's like so quickly, so unexpectedly, you know, so life is short, you know. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Anyway, because it relates to my husband's surgery. Because when they came in and told me there was one last thing they could do before they shipped my husband to Rochester, the doctor said, there's one last thing we can do. We can ship him to Rochester and all that. And that's what my son had told me about my ex-husband. Well, they said they could do this one last experimental procedure, you know, but he'd have to go to Rochester. And my sister-in-law called me after that and wanted to check in and see how Howard was doing. My husband, that's his name, Howard. And I just started bawling. I was like, oh, they said this and they said that about, you know, my ex, I won't say his name, and he died. And it was like, oh, and I was a wreck. And she was like, oh, if I was there, I would hug you. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I can't lose him. He's my best friend. And really, he is, you know. So it was a wake-up call for sure. But anyway, so he was definitely a miracle, you know. By rights, he shouldn't have made it. At the time, people were dying left and right of COVID. Not making it through heart surgery, all that. So I don't care what anybody says. I believe that God healed him. And so anyway, I feel sad. It's been 6 years. I can't believe it. And he's had a lot of health issues since then. It seemed like every summer he was in the hospital for like a month. It's like my husband, we kind of joke about it, but it's not funny. But if something can go wrong, it'll be with him. You know, you think he's going in for a simple procedure and something's going to go wrong and he's going to be stuck in the hospital for a month. It happened last year. I think it happened the year before. I forget what he had done then. I don't know. It's just one thing after another. His gallbladder, his pancreas. Then he had to have what do you call it? He had an aortic aneurysm in his abdomen. So they had to fix that last summer. And it didn't go well. So then they transferred him to Albany and they fixed him up there, and he was there for a while, and then they sent him to rehab, and the rehab neglected him. It was a different one than the one he went to after his heart surgery. I should have sent him there because they took great care of him. But this other place, which I don't know if I'll mention any names, but they neglected him and he got infected, had to go back to Albany. So he ended up there again. So a total of like 6 weeks he was in the hospital. And, you know, I was bringing my kids. Thankfully, you know, COVID had passed for the most part, and they were allowing, you know, family members to come in and visit. So I would bring my kids with them as much as I could. It was the summertime. They weren't in school. I really had no choice. But yeah, we would visit him like almost every day if we could. And then finally got out. And then this summer, it's like, his legs are not, he had him checked and he's not having the circulation in his legs that he should. So the doctor wants him to get that fixed again. And I'm like begging him not to do a procedure in the summertime because he always ends up, and it's always around his birthday. His birthday was just Wednesday, so we celebrated. And thank God, it was like the first time in like years that he's been home on his birthday. And then we've got a vacation coming up in July, and he's going with me, and he doesn't usually like to travel. I usually travel alone with my kids, so that'll be fun, I hope. He's going to bring his like e-bike so you don't have to walk around because he can't walk too far. But honestly, he does a lot considering what he's been through and the pain. I think he's like in constant pain, and I feel so bad because there's nothing I can do about it. But, you know, he takes all these supplements, and he's got prescription pills for like potassium and all, and I started drinking that Element electrolyte, which I love, and I know it helps because if I don't have it, I'll start getting cramps and stuff. And my feet, was it my toes, started like kinking up and like hurt like a Charlie horse in my foot. And I was like, ah. So I thought maybe I'm low on electrolytes. So I drank one of the elements and it went away. So I'm telling my husband, because he gets those Charlie horses a lot and they're very painful and he'll wake up in the middle of the night with them. And I think he's low on electrolytes, you know, because they got him on water pills and then they got him on potassium to replenish, you know, what he's losing. And it's like, I don't think it's enough. And he drinks a lot of coffee, which is, you know, what do they call it? Yeah, I don't know, but that like flushes all his water out too. So, but he's been drinking more water, but they say without electrolytes, the water's flushing your system too. So, so I gave him the element. He's not drinking them regularly, but that night he drank it, he didn't have a Charlie horse. So it's like, you know, if you can stand the taste of it. He had one flavor at first he didn't like, so I said, well, try this. They just came out with like an iced tea lemonade kind, and it's really good. It tastes like you're drinking iced tea. And the lemonade one too, it tastes like lemonade, you know. It's kind of like a sour tart taste to most of the flavors. I have my favorite flavors, and then I have, there's 2 flavors I'm not crazy about, but they're not bad, and I have some left, so I'm going to use them up. But yeah, but I do have my favorites: raspberry, lemonade salt, and yeah, the iced tea lemonade one, the new one they came out with. It's really good. And they also have orange flavor. That's good. Watermelon's good. And I don't usually like fruit flavored stuff like watermelon, strawberry, all that stuff, but their stuff is good if you're interested in trying it, especially if you're like working out or you're doing the carnivore diet. You need those extra electrolytes, because I've heard that if you're cutting really low on the carbohydrates have like I guess electrolytes that you need or whatever. So if you're only eating meat, you're not getting what you need, so you need to replenish. So the element, you know, it is a little bit costly, but I mean, they do have a deal where you buy 3 get 1 free, or you can check. There's I think it's Laura Spath. Yeah, she was the one that I clicked on the link so I could get like a free sample, and I got like 4 or 8 free ones, different kinds, so I could sample it. So anyway, you know, if you're up for that, give it a try. You know, if you feel like your body needs electrolytes, you will feel better. I have. It's helped my headaches, my mood, my energy, all of that. So anyway, so that was my message for today. You know, trust God, trust the process, and if you feel like you're hitting a wall, maybe it's because God's preparing you for a new level, a new lesson, and you have no idea like what it's going to be. But be open-minded, you know, and you know, God bless you. If you're struggling, hang in there. Don't give up, please. Okay, we're all here for a reason, for a purpose, and we don't always know what that is, but trust God to help you find out. All right, till next time, bye.